Hey, Randy Joe here, and welcome back to Jamaican June. This year, throughout the month of June, we are listening to various reggae albums for the first time. Today, we are checking out Heart of the Congos by the Congos. Released in 1977, this is a record from the Congos, like I said, with 10 tracks, 44 minutes as the runtime. And one thing to note here is that this was produced by one Lee Scratch Perry, who we have previously covered on the channel with his album just a few days ago, Super 8, which I thoroughly enjoyed. It was my first foray into dub, and now this isn't a dub record, this is more of a roots reggae record. Lee Scratch Perry is handling the production here, as far as I know. But aside from that, I don't really know what to expect from this record. I know that I like the cover, I like the kind of minimalist approach to it, and I know that it features Lee Scratch Perry on production. But other than that, this will be fresh for me. Going into the first track here, we've got Fisherman, which has 10 million streams on here, which is quite a bit for a reggae track. A lot of them seem to be quite underrated. But let's jump into it. Ooh. Got a nice lo-fi sound. Kind of meditative with those ohms. I like how rough and lo-fi this sounds. Again, adds to that kind of primitive feel of those 70s reggae records in a way. Really painting a picture here of the culture. Lots of hungry bellies to feed with these kids. I can't tell if it's a female or a man singing here. Either way, I do like it. Lots of religious figures being shouted out, I think, here. Yeah, it seems like the Congos consist of Cedric Mitten and Roy Ashanti Johnson. And I think that's one of them singing here. That bass from Jeffrey Chung here. Very thick. Praising God to feed these children. Ooh. Kind of psychedelic with those twang effects. I'd imagine that's Scratch Perry's expertise with the production. Really deep. Kind of a warm voice there. Really loved that track. It was laid back. It had some nice thick bass lines like I come to expect from reggae. And the Congos here playing what I imagine are perhaps congas. Maybe they are playing those. I don't know. Maybe they're doing bongos. But I thought, given their name being the Congos, they played those long ones there, which I believe are called congas. Mixing bongo and conga, I guess. But as I was saying, great track, good opener, love the lo-fi sound. Let's go into Congo Man. Congo a bongo. Maybe that's what it means to play a bongo. I'm unfamiliar. I like the steady percussion in the background. Would make for a good sample. Cleaned up, maybe. Almost has like a stream of consciousness sort of lyrics, you know, like it's almost like improvisation, I should say, instead. Feels like they're just sort of riffing off this very nice kind of percussive beat with that bass line. This one's very meditative, easy to get lost in. Hard to react to, but rest assured, I have been feeling the vibe of this one. Just really easy to get lost in. Solid track. Again, very meditative. I want to say simple, but I don't mean that in a bad way. It's got a nice minimalist sort of percussive, follow through from start to finish. But they kind of just build upon that, and it feels like a nice improvisational kind of riffing off one another sort of track. And at 5 minutes, it didn't even feel like it. I liked just the kind of casual rhythm to it. Let's go to Open Up the Gate. The psychedelic kind of washed out effects there. Again, that's gotta be Perry with those effects. After Super Ape, I feel like I'm somewhat familiar with what he goes for. Love that echo on the voice, that reverb. Praising God. There's some solid, I want to say traditional reggae, but it feels like it's just so rooted in the very DNA of reggae. Kind of captures the idea of it and the essence of it. Again, not too much to say about that other than again, very traditional, very laid back, super hypnotic. Let's go to Children Crying. This one's got a bit more of a playful beach sound to it. Not sure what the message is with this one right off the bat here. Perhaps talk about the impoverished. I like the backup vocals on this one here. It's almost like a gospel, but like their own version of it within reggae. Do, 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 do. Not sure who the main lead is on this one, but their vocal, either Cedric or Roy, sounds fantastic. I think it is the best vocal performance so far. Definitely has the most kind of command and focus. This one's much more clear. Here we are going into La La Bam Bam. Loved Children Crying, by the way, if that wasn't clear. This one's much clearer. The production on this one, much more crisp. Why did they do that? Only for 30 pieces of silver. It doesn't sound like much. I'm familiar with silver myself and the currency there. Interesting how clear and crisp this one is. I'm assuming the bulk of this album, is different recordings from different periods of time, different times in their development. And this seems, again, to be much more polished. Not that any of it's been particularly bad. I've liked the lo-fi cuts for sure. Very religiously heavy album. I'm not familiar with Cedric, Meshach, or Abednego. All figures in the book of Daniel. I like this kind of galloping percussion. The effects on this one too, it's got like this warbled kind of like bird effect in the background too. Seems like this all is tied to the book of Daniel and the story of Daniel in the lion's den. Really great harmonies on this one between the two here, for sure. Strong melody, strong atmosphere, well produced. Solid writing too. Book of Daniel references throughout. And great harmonies. Let's go into Can't Come In. La La Bum Bum. One of my favorites so far. Maybe my favorite. I'm unsure. I've liked the first 5 have been very strong. A very consistent record. This is Cedric. Oh, back to those lo-fi recordings. Cedric's got a very high-pitched vocal. This one's a much slower cut. Those bass lines are always evident throughout these tracks, no matter how lo-fi they get. A lot of members we've seen from other albums here. Sticky Thompson, Scully Sims. I know we saw him. I remember that picture. Sly Dunbar. We saw him just on an album we listened to recently. I believe on the last one actually, with Black Uhuru. A very tight-knit community of reggae artists for sure, which I like to see. I think that's interesting. Not one of my favorites for sure. As much as there's a groove to it, it does run quite long, almost 6 minutes, and it feels like it. I do like this kind of drop off though. Not a huge fan of Can't Come In. Do think it is one of my least favorites so far. But that's okay. I just think it runs a little long. Isn't the strongest melody overall. Sodom and Gomorrah is the next one here. Lots of biblical references, a very religious album. Perhaps the most religious we've gotten with Roots Reggae, which is already a pretty religiously infused genre. Lots of psychedelic effects on this one. It's gotta be again, very smart production choices from Perry. Again, religion deeply tied to the DNA of the tracks here. The percussion they're getting kind of rambunctious. I like the kind of swirling psychedelic effect on this one, especially. It's like you hear it rise, comes down, and then rise. It's been going on throughout, and again, it adds to that very kind of spirally hypnotic nature. Let's go into The Wrong Thing. I thought Sodom and Gomorrah, great, solid track. Again, no complaints. Nice rattly opening. Very metallic. Oh. Oh, I guess there is a reggae vocal harmony group throughout this record. The Meditations. Here I was just thinking it was all the Congos. Kind of a soulful voice. Marcus Garvey, so seeped into the reggae culture, from what I've gathered, and Jamaican culture especially. This one's pretty short. I like it. 3 minutes. It's brisk. It's got a nice sense of pacing throughout. Let's go into Ark of the Covenant is the next one here. Oh, kind of like a splash into the instrumental there. Very historical, this album is in a way too, with how much it's I feel like kind of teaching about religion. Oh, like that staticky sound too. Very interesting effect. I'm not sure. It's got to be intentional. Even the ants. Probably should have left those behind. Sorry, but don't need them. Pain in the ass that they are. Do 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 do. Really nice descending bass line here. Good rhythm, good melody. And as a whole, I really like that track. That's one of my favorites on the back end here for sure. Let's go into Solid Foundation. Closing out the album here with this track. Ooh. Take it away on that drum there. Lots of that static sound still around from that last track. Lots of like rattly effects on this one, very metallic. And again, it has like that kind of reverb drenched sound. Kind of psychedelic, like I said, Perry clearly all over this thing, adding his own twist. Stripping it all back here. Kind of venturing into a little bit of dub here. I think dub has been teased quite a fair amount throughout this record. And this outro is reminding me of such as Super 8. I like that one a lot. Let's give that one a like as well. Clearly my least favorite has been Can't Come In, as we're closing this out. The only track I didn't give a like to. Heart of the Congos, by the Congos, 1977 record, 10 tracks. And it's a solid record. I feel like this is one of the most kind of rooted in reggae I've listened to so far. Has the most traditional sound. It doesn't feel like it's trying to appeal to a mainstream at all. Feels very much like a pure, condensed reggae sound. All the way from the kind of lo-fi production, all the way to the very, overly religious lyrics. Again, not trying to appeal to the mainstream, just trying to appeal to their fellow brethren and the Jamaican people, which I have a lot of respect for, because at the end of the day, that is what reggae is all about, and this feels like such a pure form of it. Complaints? Don't really have any. Maybe, at the very most, I think Can't Come In does run long. Maybe you could have removed that, saved off five minutes or so, made it a 39-minute record. But that's just nitpicking. Really don't have any complaints. I thought for the most part this record was pretty brilliant. I think every track kind of maintains its runtime. None of it feels too long, except for like the one I mentioned. But other than that, they all feel like they, hit that 5-minute mark for the most part, especially in the front end. They hit that almost 5-minute mark, and they justify it. Fisherman being a great example of it. I think it is one of the strongest efforts here. La Bam Bam is a fantastic track at track 5. That one is super crisp, definitely the most polished recording, but it's also just brilliantly executed, super catchy, and just has a nice overall sense of chemistry between the members. Nothing too really complain about. It really dives into religion, especially in the second half, which I also really enjoy because it gives a lot to chew on, lyrically speaking. Probably one I'm going to come back to time and time again, and really I think it'll grow on me more than anything, given its very hypnotic nature. I think something of this slow sense of pace is meant to sort of embed itself in your brain with repeated listenings. So, Heart of the Congos, worth a listen, great record. But that pretty much does it for today's reaction. If you like this video, please hit like and subscribe to listen to just a few more reggae records for the month. We got to close things out before we dive into our July genre. But that pretty much does it for today's video. My name is Randy Joe. I appreciate you watching, and as always, I'm signing off.